The Starry Night, where turbulence, theology, and hunger meet. On a June morning in 1889, inside a stone asylum in southern France, a man stood at an iron-barred window and watched the sky before sunrise. He had once wanted to be a preacher. He had failed. He had tried to build an artist community. It collapsed in blood and anger. He had cut his own ear. Now he was confined. But above the wheat field outside his window, a star burned like fire. That man was Vincent van Gogh, and from that view came the Starry Night. To understand this painting, we must understand the man, not just his suffering, but the strange intersections inside him: science and scripture, poverty and extravagance, confinement and infinity. The Man Before the Sky. Vincent van Gogh was born in 1853 in the Netherlands, the son of a Protestant pastor. Faith shaped his childhood. Scripture was not distant, it was daily language. For a time, Vincent believed he would become a minister himself. He even worked as a missionary among coal miners in Belgium, giving away his belongings to the poor, until church authorities dismissed him for being too extreme. He was always excessive in love and belief in disappointment. He did not begin painting seriously until his late 20s. In just over a decade, he created more than 2,000 artworks. He sold almost none. His closest companion was his younger brother Theo, who sent him money month after month. Vincent often lived on bread, coffee, and tobacco. He worried constantly about being a burden. The room at Saint-Paul-de-Moselle was small and spare. It smelled of turpentine, stale coffee, and the thick, sweet scent of lavender fields drifting faintly through the iron bars. There was no heater. The stone walls held the damp chill of spring rain. It was in this cramped, literal cold that Vincent conjured a sky that looks like a furnace. By 1888, in the southern town of Arles, his mental health had collapsed. After a violent confrontation with fellow artist Paul Gauguin, Vincent mutilated his own ear. Months later, in May 1889, he voluntarily admitted himself to the asylum at Saint-Rémy. There, behind stone walls, he painted some of the most luminous works in art history, including the Starry Night, The Window and the World. From his east-facing bedroom window, Vincent could see wheat fields and the low Alpilles mountains. In early June, he wrote to Theo, "This morning I saw the countryside from my window a long time before sunrise, with nothing but the morning star, which looked very big." The morning star was Venus, unusually bright in the Provençal sky that spring. But the Starry Night is not a simple landscape. The village in the painting was not visible from his window. It is imagined, a memory village crowned by a church steeple more Dutch than French. It feels like home. It feels like longing. The cypress tree in the foreground rises like a dark flame. In Mediterranean cultures, cypress trees are planted in graveyards. They are symbols of mourning, but also of eternity. And above everything, the sky does not rest. It swirls. The physics of turbulence. In 2004, scientists studying high-resolution images of the Starry Night made a startling discovery. The patterns in the sky, the curling eddies and spirals, match statistical models described by Kolmogorov's theory of turbulence, a 20th-century principle of fluid dynamics. Turbulence explains how energy moves chaotically through fluids, like air and water. It is mathematically complex and notoriously difficult to visualize. Van Gogh painted those swirls in 1889. Kolmogorov described the mathematics in 1941. Vincent was not solving equations. Yet in a moment of psychological fracture, he may have perceived something fundamental, the hidden architecture of motion itself. Smoke curls this way. Storms twist this way. Galaxies spiral this way. The sky in the Starry Night is not decorative. It behaves. Perhaps what we call madness was, in part, an altered sensitivity, a heightened perception of energy that most of us filter out. Perhaps Vincent was seeing turbulence long before science named it. The shimmering trick of light. There is another invisible layer to this painting, one that unfolds inside the viewer's brain. The yellow of the stars and the blue of the sky share nearly identical luminance, almost the same brightness value even though they are different colors. The human brain processes brightness and color through separate systems. The older visual system detects motion and contrast. The more evolved system interprets color differences. Because the luminance is so similar, the primitive system struggles to separate the stars from the sky, while the color system distinguishes them clearly. The result is a trembling effect. The stars seem to shimmer. They pulse. They appear alive. Van Gogh did not merely paint light, he constructed an experience. He designed a sky that vibrates inside the viewer's nervous system, a quiet act of perceptual engineering. 11 stars and a dream. Look closely. There are 11 stars in the sky, alongside the moon and the brilliant morning star. Some scholars have connected this detail to Genesis 37:9, the story of Joseph. Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. Joseph was a dreamer. He was misunderstood. He was rejected by his brothers. He was cast into exile. Van Gogh, the failed preacher turned painter, was living in an asylum when he painted 11 stars bowing over a sleeping village. Was this intentional? We cannot know. But Vincent knew Scripture intimately. It shaped his early life. The number hangs in the sky like a whispered memory of faith, not institutional faith, but the faith of the outcast, the prophet in confinement, the dreamer misunderstood. Whether conscious or not, the theological echo deepens the painting's gravity. The cost of blue. The sky in the Starry Night is saturated with ultramarine and cobalt blue. These were not inexpensive pigments. Historically, ultramarine was derived from lapis lazuli and was once more valuable than gold. Even in the late 19th century, high-quality blues required sacrifice. Vincent often skipped meals. He worried about Theo's finances. He described himself as a burden, and yet when it came to the sky, he chose abundance. His body knew poverty. His canvas knew extravagance. The paint is applied in thick sculptural strokes, impasto, so dense that in places it rises from the surface like relief carving. This was not a passive vision gently brushed onto linen. It was pushed, pressed, worked into being. The painting becomes a record of effort. Muscle against canvas, will against despair. The duality of the canvas. The Starry Night holds two realities at once. The sky was real, a pre-dawn sky, with Venus blazing above the wheat fields of Saint-Rémy. Yet on the canvas it becomes something more, a field of swirling turbulence that echoes the hidden mathematics of storms and galaxies. The village below was not visible from Vincent's window. It is a memory village shaped by Dutch steeples and northern childhood landscapes. What was physically absent becomes emotionally present. The cypress tree was an ordinary graveyard tree. In paint, it transforms into a dark bridge, linking earth to heaven, the mortal to the infinite. The light inside his room came through iron bars, but on the canvas, light breaks free. The stars pulse and shimmer, engineered through subtle shifts in luminance that make the sky feel alive. Vincent himself was confined, doubted, institutionalized, yet what he created feels boundless. The painting is not a contradiction. It is a tension held perfectly in balance. The failure. In letters to Theo, Vincent called the painting a failure. He believed he had exaggerated too much, drifted too far from observation into imagination. He preferred working directly from nature. This painting, shaped partly by memory and emotion, felt excessive to him. History disagreed. After his death in 1890 at age 37, his brother Theo inherited the works. Theo died only 6 months later. It was Theo's widow, Johanna van Gogh Bonger, who tirelessly promoted Vincent's art, publishing his letters and organizing exhibitions. In 1941, the Starry Night entered the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. The painting he doubted became one of the most recognized images in the world. What the sky teaches us. Why does the Starry Night still move us more than a century later? Because it does not deny darkness. The village sleeps in shadow, the cypress rises like morning, the sky churns, and yet the stars blaze, not gently, not quietly. They blaze. Vincent painted this while uncertain of his mind, uncertain of his future, uncertain of his worth. But he did not paint a silent sky. He painted one alive with motion, mathematics, scripture, illusion, and light. Perhaps the true masterpiece is not only the canvas. It is the fact that he kept reaching upward. In confinement, he painted infinity. In poverty, he painted richness. In doubt, he painted radiance. And across time, those stars still shimmer, not only because of physics or theology or pigment, but because one restless human being refused to let the night be empty.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Asylum. Definition: a safe place where people can go to escape danger or trouble. Example: the refugees asked for asylum in another country to escape war. 2. Extravagance. Definition: spending too much money or using more than is necessary. Example: buying many expensive clothes was an extravagance she could not afford. 3. Excessive. Definition: more than what is normal, needed, or reasonable. Example: the teacher said the noise in the classroom was excessive. 4. Spare. Definition: extra or not being used at the moment. Example: he kept a spare key in his bag in case he lost the main one. 5. Cramped. Definition: too small and uncomfortable because there is not enough space. Example: the students felt cramped sitting in the small classroom. 6. Literal. Definition: the exact meaning of words without imagination or exaggeration. Example: the literal meaning of bilingual is a person who speaks 2 languages. 7. Conjured. Definition: made something appear in the mind as if by magic or imagination. Example: the story conjured images of a dark forest in my mind. 8. Luminous. Definition: shining or giving off soft light. Example: the moon looked luminous in the night sky. 9. Swirl. Definition: to move in a circular or spinning way. Example: the wind made the leaves swirl through the air. 10. Turbulence. Definition: strong and sudden movement in air or water. Example: the airplane shook when it flew through turbulence. 11. Luminance. Definition: the amount of light that comes from a surface. Example: the screen brightness changed the luminance of the picture. 12. Saturated. Definition: completely full or filled with something. Example: after the heavy rain, the ground was saturated with water. 13. Impasto. Definition: a painting style where thick layers of paint are put on the canvas so the texture is visible. Example: the artist used impasto to make the paint stand out from the canvas. 14. Institutionalized. Definition: placed in a hospital or care center for long-term treatment or supervision. Example: the patient was institutionalized for many years because of mental illness.
Comprehension questions. 1. Where was Vincent van Gogh living when he painted the Starry Night? Answer: he was living in the St. Paul de Mausolée Asylum in Saint-Rémy, France. 2. What did Van Gogh see from his bedroom window that inspired the painting? Answer: he saw wheat fields, distant hills, and the bright morning star, which was actually the planet Venus. 3. Why is the village in the Starry Night not entirely realistic? Answer: because the village was not visible from Van Gogh's window. It was added from his imagination and memories, especially of Dutch villages from his childhood. 4. What does the cypress tree in the painting symbolize in Mediterranean culture? Answer: cypress trees are often associated with graveyards and mourning, but they can also symbolize eternity and the connection between earth and heaven. 5. What surprising scientific discovery was made about the swirling sky and the starry night? Answer: scientists found that the swirling patterns resemble the mathematical structure of turbulence, described in fluid dynamics. 6. What is turbulence, according to the article? Answer: turbulence is the chaotic movement of energy in fluids like air and water, creating swirling patterns similar to storms, smoke, and galaxies. 7. What visual effect makes the stars in the painting appear to shimmer or pulse? Answer: the stars and sky have nearly the same luminance brightness. Which confuses the brain's motion detection system and makes the stars appear to shimmer. 8. How does the article describe Van Gogh's role in creating this visual effect? Answer. The article suggests that Van Gogh acted like a neurological architect, designing a visual experience that affects the viewer's brain. 9. What biblical story might be symbolically connected to the number of stars in the painting? Answer. Genesis chapter 37:9, in which Joseph dreams of the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing down. 10. Why might Van Gogh have been familiar with this biblical story? Answer. Because he grew up in a religious household, and his father was a Protestant pastor. 11. What does the article say about the pigments used in the painting? Answer. Van Gogh used expensive pigments such as ultramarine and cobalt blue, even though he was often poor and struggled to afford food. 12. What painting technique did Van Gogh use that made the paint thick and textured? Answer. He used impasto, applying paint so thickly that it rises from the surface of the canvas. 13. Why did Van Gogh himself consider the Starry Night a failure? Answer. He believed it was too exaggerated and not faithful enough to direct observation of nature. 14. Who played a major role in making Van Gogh famous after his death? Answer. Johanna van Gogh Bonger, the widow of his brother Theo, who promoted his work and published his letters. 15. According to the article, what deeper message does the Starry Night convey? Answer. The painting shows how Van Gogh transformed personal struggle and confinement into a vision of beauty, energy, and hope in the night sky.